All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. Now, in a short period of time, Anthony Richardson has gone from being the future at quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts to being someone who is going to be holding a clipboard. Okay, today, Colts head coach Shane Steichen announced that when the Colts take the field for week one against the Miami Dolphins, that it's going to be veteran Daniel Jones and not Richardson at the starting quarterback position for Indianapolis. Steichen said that the competition had been neck and neck for the most part throughout training camp, but he decided to go with Daniel Jones. And then going with Jones, honestly, what does that say about Anthony Richardson? I mean, you look at him, and in 2 years as a Colts starting quarterback, he struggled at times, okay? But you look at what the Colts are going with at the starting quarterback position in the form of Daniel Jones. He's not exactly the second coming of Peyton Manning either. Okay, we've had 6 years to see what Jones could be as the starting quarterback for the New York Giants, and I'm here to tell you it was not pretty. Jones has a career completion percentage of just over 64%, while his record as a starter in the National Football League is 24, 44, and 1. Now, many people will ask, why did the Giants stick with Daniel Jones so long, especially after they made the decision to pay him and not running back Saquon Barkley, who in his first year with the Philadelphia Eagles was on the verge of breaking the NFL single season rushing record. Now, 2 years ago, the Colts selected Richardson fourth overall, but things have not worked out for him so far. When selecting Richardson, the Colts fell in love with his physical attributes. And in the process, they failed to pay attention to all of the red flags. I mean, you look at Anthony Richardson. I mean, this guy is a physical specimen. We're talking about 6'4", nearly 250 pounds, depending on what he ate for breakfast. But nonetheless, there were things that Indianapolis should have paid attention to. Um, the biggest thing for me with the Colts, and this is something I questioned him when he came out of college at Florida. He only had 13 starts collegiately under his belt, and at Florida, he had a career completion percentage under 55, 24 touchdowns, 15 interceptions. And with all of that said, when Anthony Richardson came into the National Football League, he was still very raw. I felt like, in my opinion, that Richardson should have stayed in school. This was a guy that definitely would have benefited if the NILs were around in more ways than one, because he wouldn't have been as enticed, I don't think so, to leave. And he could have stayed in college and gotten more polished. However, it's one of those that when it was all said and done, he still went fourth overall. And if you have an opportunity to go out there and be a first round pick, more guys, more often than not, especially at the quarterback position, are going to take it. Now, you look at Richardson's time in the National Football League, okay, and just like it was in college, he has had accuracy issues. It's one of those where Anthony Richardson can make the 60-yard pass look extremely easy, but he can also struggle with a 5-yard slant or a 10-yard out or even a hitch pass or a screen pass, okay? And we've seen that more often than not during his time with the Colts. Like I said, the accuracy issues have continued to plague him. We're talking about a guy in 2 years with the Colts who only has a career completion percentage of just over 50%. And just look at last year, Anthony Richardson's completion percentage was under 50 for the season. He's also been unable to stay healthy. And that's a big thing right there. He's only started 15 games so far in the National Football League. We saw Richardson get benched at one point during the season following the road loss to the Houston Texans. Remember when he basically had to call the timeout and sub himself out of the game because he was winded. He was running around the field. I will grant him that, scrambling, trying to make something happen. But at the end of the day, it's still a bad look for the quarterback position. So you ask yourself, now that the decision has been made for the Colts to go with Daniel Jones in week number one and have Anthony Richardson on the bench, why was the decision made? Well, I'm gonna tell you like this. Okay, I'm not inside of that Colts facility, anything like that. But Shane Steichen, the Indianapolis Colts head coach, he's going into his third year with the franchise. So far, his record in Indianapolis is 17 and 17, zero playoff appearances, and honestly, the pressure might be on him to get to the postseason this year. Remember, Jim Irsay, the owner that brought him in, unfortunately passed away earlier this year. It's still within the family, but nonetheless, it's not the same people that necessarily brought Shane Steichen in. And at the end of the day, it's put up or shut up. And if Shane Steichen is going to be fighting for his job, he's going to go out there and he's going to put the best people, not just the best quarterback, the best people who he feels will give him an opportunity to win. And right now, he simply doesn't feel that Anthony Richardson is that guy. Now, with that said, okay, they're going in a different direction, at least for week number one. How much patience can Shane Steichen afford to have with Anthony Richardson? Not a lot, okay? And you ask yourself, well, I said this. I said this when the Colts signed Daniel Jones earlier in the offseason. I said, listen, first and foremost, Daniel Jones was going there because he was looking to compete for a starting job. He felt like he could beat out Anthony Richardson. And I also said this then. If Anthony Richardson could not beat out Daniel Jones, he might be done in Indianapolis. And you got to wonder if the end of the line is here for Anthony Richardson in Indianapolis. I'm going to say no. And I'm going to tell you why. I'm not ready to write him off completely with the Colts yet. It's because, you know what? I'm not sold on Daniel Jones. Okay. And again, Daniel Jones is going to be the starter for week number one. I feel like at some point this season, the Colts are going to be going back to Anthony Richardson, whether it's through Daniel Jones getting injured, because he is another quarterback who has had injury issues throughout his career, or the fact that he simply can't get it done on the field. Daniel Jones has been a guy himself who has had accuracy issues throughout his NFL career, missing wide open receivers and missing them badly. So I'm not really sold on him being the starting quarterback for Indianapolis for the entire season. So the only thing I could say to Anthony Richardson from that aspect is, you know what, be ready when your number is called, and it more than likely is going to happen at some point. Now, will losing the starting position to Daniel Jones be the wake up call that Richardson needs? I'm not sure, because I feel like them bringing in Daniel Jones, in my opinion, should have been wake up call enough. Getting benched late last season should have also been a wake up call, honestly, for Anthony Richardson. But you also ask yourself, if things do not work out for Richardson in Indianapolis, does he still have a future in the NFL? I'm here to say yes, because this kid's only 23 years old. Okay. He still has a lot of upside. Okay. He has potential. And I'm going to say this: Anthony Richardson, with the right organization, could happen. Okay. And I'm not saying that somebody's going to, pick him up, off the scrap heap and turn him into a starter right away. No, there's always going to be a reclamation project in the National Football League. And I guarantee you, there's teams right now around the NFL looking at Anthony Richardson from afar and saying, you know what, hey, I can fix this kid. Okay, if you just bring him into our building. And I think Anthony Richardson needs to be someplace where you have a strong quarterback room, you have strong coaching at the position, and he doesn't have to go out there and be the guy right away. Just look at Baker Mayfield. Okay, there were a lot of people who were ready to write off Baker after things didn't work out with the Cleveland Browns. Okay, he went to Carolina, had some ups and downs. ended up with the Rams and with Sean McVay. Now he's on Tampa, and Baker Mayfield looks like a completely different guy. It comes down to that coaching, and it comes down to the organization. Just my 2 cents on that. So this right here, in my opinion, is another classic example of buyer beware in the NFL at the quarterback position, as the Colts just benched the quarterback that they drafted, and they drafted a guy who I felt they took too high, and they benched him for another quarterback who was taken too high as well. And I've said this before when it comes to the first round of the NFL draft. No position in the National Football League is more overrated than the quarterback position, from the standpoint that you have organizations who feel like they have to go out there and they have to take a quarterback in the first round, and they are trying to force things. Okay. It's one of those where I've said it before. Daniel Jones was not a first round quarterback, and he has shown that throughout his NFL career. If you want to take Anthony Richardson in round number one, fine, but you've got to have a strong veteran presence in in that quarterback room for him to lean on. And don't get me wrong, I know that the Colts had Joe Flacco last year, but I think it was a situation with Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco was there knowing that he could compete, because Joe Flacco felt like he still could start in the NFL, and it has shown. So you ask yourself, what is next for the Indianapolis Colts, and should their fan base have high hopes for this season? Honestly, if I'm a Colts fan and if I'm looking at what is going on at the quarterback position right now, all I could say is, you know what, buckle up for a long fall in Indy. The biggest thing for me, and I know that a lot of people today might be blaming Anthony Richardson. I'm not going to put all of the blame on this kid, because how much blame should be put on the Colts organization? When Daniel Jones takes the field in a couple of weeks to take on Miami, he is going to be the 11th different starting quarterback that the Colts franchise has had since Andrew Luck retired after the 2018 season. So we're talking about, in 6 seasons, now going on 7, Indianapolis is going to have 11 different starting quarterbacks. And if anybody follows football, you know that that is one position, along with the GM and the head coach, where you cannot have a revolving door at that position. And I think that revolving door is going to continue, because I guarantee you, before the season is over, Anthony Richardson is going to be starting some games for the Indianapolis Colts. But again, I put a lot of this on the Colts organization, okay, because they have just not figured it out at the quarterback position since Andrew Luck left. Another big question for Indianapolis: will Shane Steichen be the head coach in Indianapolis in 2026? I'm not holding, my hope on it, because you look at it again, this right here shows me, A, you got a desperate head coach, and B, you know what, Indianapolis didn't fully do their homework on things. So I don't think, if Indianapolis has a start over at the quarterback position for 2026, I don't think that Shane Steichen is going to be a part of that decision making. So nonetheless, if the Colts don't make the playoffs this year, I don't think we see Shane Steichen in 2026. And if you're telling me that Daniel Jones is going to be the Colts starting quarterback for 2025, I am not holding my breath on Indianapolis being a playoff team. I think Anthony Richardson still does have a future in the National Football League. It's not going to be in Indianapolis. He needs to be around some quarterback gurus, okay, whether it's the head coach, OC, quarterback coach, whomever. He needs to be around some quarterback gurus, and he needs somebody who's going to show him the fundamentals in and out, the mechanics of a quarterback, what it takes to prepare X, Y, and Z. And I don't think it's going to happen in Indianapolis. So a quarterback controversy, if you're looking for one, and we haven't even gotten to week one, there's definitely one coming out of the Indianapolis Colts camp. Let's see if Danny Dimes is going to be the Colts starting quarterback for the entire season. Like I said before, I'm not holding my breath. And let's see how Anthony Richardson bounces back from this. But folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank each and every one of you for checking out the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank all of you for checking it out. If you like what you heard and saw, you know what to do. Just hit that like button as well as subscribing to this channel. And like I always say, it is greatly appreciated. Also, if you're on the X, formerly known as Twitter, you can check me out at 300 Pounds of Sports. And if you give me that follow, I will give you the follow in return. And the same can also be said for Instagram, but you can check me out at 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge. Also, if you're on Facebook, you can check us out at Sports Depot 365. And as far as I'm concerned, one of the better sports debating groups going on social media. But until next time, fine folks, my name is William Martin. I'm signing off, and I'm saying thanks once again for checking out the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. Be well, everybody.